As then owner Johnny Depp was performing at the Viper Room in 1993, news began to travel through the crowd. River Phoenix had collapsed just outside the venue. He was there with his girlfriend Samantha Mathis, and she recently broke her silence on the details of that heartbreaking night. River Phoenix was born in 1970 in Oregon. His parents, immersed in the counterculture of the 1960s, decided to name him after the River of Life from Hermann Hesse's novel Siddhartha, a book that was popular among Americans interested in Buddhism and Eastern mysticism. They constantly moved, often living out of their mobile home. Each of their children was born in a different state. They were vegans and rejected Western medicine, opting for a more natural approach of herbal remedies and spiritual enlightenment. River was the eldest of 5 Phoenix children, all of whom went on to have successful careers in their own right, the most well-known being Joaquin. River would later describe his childhood as a desperate situation. A talented and passionate guitarist from a young age, he had to use his skill just to survive. He and his siblings would often busk on street corners, performing hymns and cover songs to raise money so the family could eat. So blazing was Phoenix and his siblings' talent that their street performances began to attract massive crowds. These audiences would often be so big that police officers would have to interfere to disperse them. He never had a formal education throughout his entire childhood. His parents taught him to read and write, and a screenwriter later described him as having no deep roots into any kind of sense of history or literature. River's parents had darker priorities. Always seeking their next spiritual fix, they decided to link up with the Children of God religious sect in 1979. They were looking for salvation, but they had no idea what kind of nightmare they were getting into. The organisation is largely considered a cult that preys on vulnerable people. The Children of God stationed the Phoenix family all the way down in Caracas, Venezuela. Living on an agricultural compound, the cult assigned them work as missionaries and fruit pickers. It seemed like a chance to build community, but instead, River would endure unspeakable horrors. The Children of God cult became reviled for the horrific acts they would force their members to engage in, regardless of age. River Phoenix was not spared this treatment. In an interview later in his career, he claimed he lost his virginity after being coerced at the age of 4. Thankfully, his parents grew disillusioned with the Children of God and in 1977 decided to move back to the United States. In LA, his mother got a job as a secretary at NBC. The Phoenix siblings were discovered singing near their mother's workplace by a talent agent who was so charmed by the family that she immediately signed them all. River was the clear standout. He clearly oozed charm, talent and charisma, and his career quickly took off at the age of 10. By the end of his first year working alone, he had appeared in commercials for Mitsubishi, Ocean Spray and Saks Fifth Avenue. By 1980, River had fully committed to pursuing an acting career. He began to go to auditions, and he stood out. Along with his musical and acting abilities, he had other skills too. Corey Feldman, who often ran into him at auditions at this time, claimed that they became friendly rivals. He also revealed that River was a talented tap dancer, but it was in his acting roles where he really stood out. In 1984, he was cast in an after-school special entitled The Riddle of Dyslexia. His brother Joaquin also starred in a small role alongside him. Having suffered from dyslexia his entire life, River completely embodied the role. His lived experience may have inspired the subsequent reaction. His performance received much attention, and the resulting praise launched his career into the stratosphere. River's big-time breakout role was in the 1986 movie Stand By Me. Based on a Stephen King story, the young actor's performance received critical acclaim, and overnight, he found himself one of the biggest names in entertainment at the age of just 16. But already, showbiz was taking its toll on him. If you had to pick one scene from Phoenix's acting career that stood out the most, many would likely pick the scene in Stand By Me where his character finally opens up to his best friend and has an emotional breakdown. When filming the scene, he was urged by director Rob Reiner to go into his own memories and channel his feelings of betrayal by adults in his life. Knowing his past, it's hard not to imagine how hard it was for him to go through that on set. In the end, he not only knocked the scene out of the park, but he was unable to stop crying after the scene was cut and needed emotional assistance while on the set. Perhaps this pain was what fueled his talent. His next big role came later that year when he starred alongside Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren in The Mosquito Coast. The director, Peter Weir, made no secret of how much Phoenix's performance blew him away. Looking back on the filming process years later, Weir commented on how he felt River was an obvious candidate for stardom, claiming he had something apart from acting ability. Laurence Olivier never had what River had. While filming The Mosquito Coast in Belize, River Phoenix struck up a romance with his co-star and on-screen love interest, Martha Plimpton. Like something ripped out of a Hollywood rom-com, the two initially couldn't stand each other, but would end up in a relationship that lasted years. River Phoenix was an outspoken animal rights activist and vegan. Plimpton once recalled how the two went to a fancy restaurant in New York. After she ordered soft-shell crab, River stood up and left the restaurant. She found him on Park Avenue crying. When she asked what was wrong, he confessed his pain at her eating an animal. His sensitivity defined his professional life as well. Despite the star-studded cast and big budget of The Mosquito Coast, the movie was something of a commercial and critical flop. This shocked River greatly, and he later spoke about it in interviews, displaying a unique capacity for self-reflection, a trait that would sometimes take him to dark places. It's easy to forget that by the time he landed his first leading role, River was still a child and under the guardianship of his parents. By the time he was 18, his family had relocated over 40 times. With his newfound success, it was finally time to settle them somewhere. Upon reaching adulthood, River Phoenix had an impressive net worth. Reflecting his kind nature, he decided he would purchase property on which his family could finally settle down. With his abundant wealth, the young actor purchased not one but 2 ranches for the Phoenix family, one in Florida and one in Costa Rica. His 6th film was released later the same year. Directed by Sidney Lumet, River starred once again alongside his girlfriend Martha Plimpton in Running on Empty. Another acclaimed performance on his part, he became the 6th youngest Academy Award nominee of all time, getting a nod in the Best Supporting Actor category. He lost the Oscar to Kevin Kline, but it didn't faze him. With trademark humility, he jumped to his feet in happiness when they announced Kline's win. River's next acclaimed role was in the 1991 indie film Dogfight, but his sensitivity got to him again. Starring as a US Marine with actress Lily Taylor, she later commented on the effects the role had on him because the character was so radically different, saying that it caused him a lot of discomfort. Phoenix seemed more at ease in progressive roles. 91 was a prolific year, and he starred in yet another critically acclaimed role alongside Keanu Reeves in My Own Private Idaho. His performance as a gay hustler received a lot of attention, with many praising the sensitivity, poignancy, and humour of his portrayal. For this role, River is partly credited with bringing queer cinema into the mainstream. But during filming, his life began to shift as well. By the time of filming My Own Private Idaho, River had begun to casually experiment with illicit substances. Soon, speculation began within Hollywood circles about the extent of the young actor's use, including stories that he would show up high to set. However, others like Idaho director Gus Van Sant disputed this, claiming he never saw Phoenix engage in such behaviour. Regardless, his struggles with addiction had begun, and it would cost him his closest relationship. Martha Plimpton alleges that Phoenix's substance issues got out of hand pretty quickly. In a painful account of her high school sweetheart's exit from her life, she recounted how much his use pained her and how she would beg him to stop, often leading to massive arguments. She ended the relationship when she realised that, in her words, he had to change himself and he didn't want to yet. Still, River's career marched on. Having briefly played a young Indy in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, George Lucas asked him to reprise the role in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, a prequel spin-off. River politely refused, seeing TV work as a step down from the movies. It was the career move of a confident actor. But acting wasn't what got him out of bed in the morning. Close friends and family revealed that his true artistic passion was music. Indeed, he even stated in an interview that his early busking with his siblings was not only to make money, but to pursue a career in the music industry. Phoenix was an accomplished singer, songwriter and guitarist, and he began to play local concerts in LA after gaining notoriety as an actor. As demonstrated by his fanatic veganism, River Phoenix was also a passionate advocate for animal rights and environmental protection. He became a spokesperson for PETA, gave speeches at environmentalist rallies, and wrote op-eds on these issues in teen mags directed at his young fanbase. He even used his income for good, purchasing 800 acres of rainforest in Costa Rica for preservation. Despite his public activism, he was hurting behind the scenes. He continued to struggle with substance issues, especially alcohol, according to his friends. But he kept his habits under wraps from all but his closest confidants, fearing it may hurt his career and image as a poster boy for clean living. He successfully maintained this public persona until one fateful night that would change everything. In late October 1993, River holed up with his friend Red Hot Chili Peppers guitarist John Frusciante. The two proceeded to embark on a multi-day binge, consuming a variety of illicit substances and neglecting sleep entirely. It was the pre-game to a night of music and debauchery that would leave emotional scars on everyone present. Frusciante and Phoenix were scheduled to perform a concert at the Viper Room on October 30th, 1993. The venue was partly owned by fellow actor Johnny Depp. He, Phoenix, Frusciante and a plethora of other big names were set to play a gig as a supergroup to ring in Halloween. Phoenix showed up with his brother Joaquin and girlfriend Samantha Mathis in tow. At one point in the night, River alerted friend and musician Bob Forrest that he wasn't feeling well and that he thought he might be overdosing. Forrest expressed doubts as Phoenix was standing up fine and talking, but offered to take him home anyway. Phoenix declined, saying he was feeling better despite his plea mere seconds earlier. In an interview years later, Mathis revealed the dark truth about that night. At the time, she had thought Phoenix was sober. His state that night was a complete shock to her, and she recalled that he was high in a way that made her feel uncomfortable. She recalls that she saw Phoenix getting into an argument with the club's bouncers. He had apparently gotten into an altercation with another man, and the venue's security were trying to kick both of them out. Upon leaving the club, he collapsed on the pavement outside. He immediately began writhing on the ground outside the Viper Room, having convulsions. The gathering crowd had a tough time determining whether he was breathing. His sister, Rain, also present, began to give River mouth-to-mouth, while his brother Joaquin called 911.
Sorry, it's my brother. Please come here.
How old is he?
He's 23, so there's no one else around.
Okay.
I'm fine. I think he had Valium or something. I don't know.
He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center where they attempted to resuscitate him. Sadly, the attempts were unsuccessful. At 1:51 AM on the morning of October 31st, River Phoenix was pronounced dead at the unbearably young age of 23. A promising artist and activist had been lost, seemingly out of nowhere. In the days following his death, the Viper Room became a shrine to his memory. Fans left candles, flowers, and pictures outside in tribute. The club itself closed down for a week out of respect, and, at Johnny Depp's insistence, closed every subsequent year on Halloween in honour of his friend. The media was less respectful. Following the release of Phoenix's autopsy report, which confirmed the presence of multiple illicit substances in his body at the time of his passing, the press's reaction was disturbingly gleeful. It was a perfect tabloid story. Vegan poster child of clean living dies from dirty habits. One writer described him as the vegan James Dean, comparing both actors' sudden deaths at young ages. The image painted of Phoenix was painful to those who knew him best. Many of his friends, including My Private Idaho director Gus Van Sant, have asserted that Phoenix's substance use was exaggerated by the media following his death. The real tragedy, they said, was that he was only a casual, occasional user who happened to have one bad night with the worst possible outcome. After his passing, the media blamed River Phoenix for his own tragic demise, but those in the Hollywood scene pointed fingers among themselves, and many settled on one figure. According to author Gavin Edwards in his book Last Night at the Viper Room, River Phoenix and the Hollywood He Left Behind, Mathis told him that Red Hot Chili Peppers member John Frusciante had given Phoenix a strange mixture in a cup that had set everything off. An account by director William Richard, who worked with Phoenix on Jimmy Reardon, stated that he'd heard about someone who was there that night who went into hiding afterward, in fear he'd be arrested. He said he later realised the person in that story was Frusciante. Regardless of the way he went out, it's the way River Phoenix has been remembered that really matters. In an emotional speech accepting the Oscar for Best Actor in 2020, Joaquin Phoenix honoured his older brother and the influence he had on him.
When he was 17, my brother wrote this lyric. He said, "Run to the rescue with love and peace will follow." Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more videos.
I'll see you. Not if I see you first.